The wind was sharp on the surface of planet Vecran 7. The sky was red. The ground was cracked like old bone. A giant transport train rumbled in the distance, shaking the black metal tracks. It was called the Bloodstone Prison Train, and it only moved for two reasons: delivery or execution. Today, it was coming to kill. 2 alien women were chained to the train tracks. Their hands and feet were locked in thick energy cuffs. Their clothes were torn, their bodies bruised. One had silver blue skin and glowing white eyes. Her name was Keleth. The other had emerald green skin, sharp golden eyes, and short black hair. She was called Zyra. Both looked up as the sound of the train grew louder. 10 armored soldiers stood nearby. They laughed and pointed at the prisoners. One of them stepped forward. He was tall, wearing black Varan armor, and had no kindness in his voice. His name was Commander Vrelk. He turned to the human man standing a few feet away. "You get one," Vrelk said. "Pick one to live. Leave the other to die under the wheels." The man's name was Jox Morin, a former soldier, a human outlaw, once respected, now hunted. His face was calm, but his eyes were fire. He looked at the 2 chained women, then back at the commander. "Why are they chained here?" Jox asked. "They are criminals," Vrelk replied. "They ran from our empire. You want one? Take her. The other is nothing." Jox looked again. Zyra's lip was bleeding. Keleth's eyes met his. Neither begged, neither cried. They just waited, silent, brave. The train horn screamed. It was only a minute away now. Jax stepped forward. Slowly the soldiers raised their weapons. "I said choose one," Vrelk shouted, but Jox didn't stop. He dropped a small metal ball at his feet. It rolled and hissed. Smoke exploded everywhere. Shots were fired. Lasers cut through the smoke, but Jox was already moving fast. Strong, trained. He reached Zyra first. He smashed the cuffs with a stolen plasma knife. She gasped, but didn't speak. Then he rolled across the tracks. Just as the train's headlights came into view, it was coming fast. Too fast. Keleth looked at him, confused. "Why both?" she asked, weakly. "Because that's what humans do," Jox said, and cut her chains. He grabbed both women by the arms and ran. The train screamed past behind them. The tracks shook violently. Fire and sparks flew everywhere. They jumped behind a pile of metal crates. The train thundered by. Just seconds later, Vrelk's soldiers were coughing from the smoke. Some were shouting, some were running. Jox looked at the 2 women. "Can you walk?" Zyra nodded slowly. "I can try." Keleth touched her ankle. Barely. Jox stood and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button. A hidden hoverbike roared to life nearby. It had 2 back seats. Small, but enough. "Time to go," Jox said. Zyra climbed on first, then Keleth holding onto Jox tightly. They sped away into the burning sky. 30 minutes later, in the wastelands, they stopped near an old communications tower. Broken and empty. Jax checked the horizon. No one was following. Not yet. Zyra sat on the ground, breathing hard. Keleth leaned against the wall. "You didn't have to do that," Keleth said. "You could have picked one. You could have lived easy. I don't leave people behind." Jox said. "You don't even know us," Zyra added. Jax looked out into the red sand. "I don't need to," he said. "I saw what they were doing. That was enough." Keleth looked at him carefully. "They'll hunt you now, forever." "I've been hunted before." There was silence for a few moments. Then Zyra asked, "Why help us?" Jox turned to face her. "Because you're not their property." "No one is." Keleth's eyes glowed softly. She spoke with quiet fear. "They will send assassins. They will send machines, and they will not stop." Jox smiled just a little. "Let them come." He turned away and walked toward the hoverbike. Zyra looked at Keleth. "Do you trust him?" Keleth nodded slowly. "I don't know." But he didn't. "Leave us, that means something." Far in the sky, a small drone blinked. It had watched everything. It turned and sped away toward the Varan base. Back in the command tower, Commander Vrelk received the footage. He watched Jox rescue the women. His eyes narrowed. "Foolish human," he growled. "You just started a war." ChatGPT said. The night on Vecran 7 was never truly dark. Twin moons glowed above the wasteland, casting long shadows across the sharp rocks and dry sand. A cold wind carried dust and silence. But tonight the silence was broken by the hum of a stolen hoverbike tearing across the dead plains. Jox held the controls tight. Behind him, Zyra gripped his waist, and Keleth leaned against her, weak but alert. None of them spoke. They didn't need to. The danger was behind them, but not far. Jox's eyes scanned the horizon. He knew they couldn't outrun the Varan Empire for long. He needed a place to hide, to rest, to plan. He turned sharply to a dark canyon to the east. The place was marked on no map. That's why he chose it. The bike dipped low and entered a hidden crevice between 2 cliffs. Inside was silence again, cooler air, narrow walls, and a collapsed satellite bunker. Long abandoned. Jox stopped the bike and helped the women off. Keleth collapsed to her knees. "Rest here," he said. "It's safe for now." Zyra sat near a wall, her golden eyes watching Jox. "You've done this before," she said. "Run, hide, fight." Jox didn't answer right away. He was checking the bunker's systems. Still dead, no power, but solid structure would do. I was a soldier once, he said. Then I learned who I was fighting for. Keleth looked up. Let me guess. Varan Empire. No, Jox replied. Humans. They both looked at him, confused. Command turned on me when I refused to wipe out a rebel colony, he explained. They said it was necessary. I said it was murder. Zyra nodded slowly. That sounds like the Varan way. Keleth tilted her head. Then why did they let you live? They didn't, Jox said quietly. They think I'm dead. Outside the bunker, a distant hum began to rise. Faint but growing. Keleth stood quickly, alert. That's not wind. Zyra was already by the door. Drones. Jox moved fast, grabbed his plasma rifle, and peeked out. One black drone, small and fast, hovered in the sky, scanning the ground. A tracker. He fired once. The drone exploded in a bright flash. Too late, Jox muttered. They know where we are. Keleth moved closer. We need to go. No, Jox said. We can't keep running. Zyra crossed her arms. Then what? Surrender. We fight smarter, Jox replied. Tell me who you really are. Why was the Empire ready to kill you both in public? Keleth hesitated. She glanced at Zyra, then back at Jox. I am not just a runaway, she said. I was part of the royal line, a Varan noble. Jox raised an eyebrow. So why would they execute you? Because I stole something, Keleth said. Something they can't let go. She pulled back her sleeve. Strange glowing symbols ran up her arm, faint but alive. This isn't ink, she said. It's data. Ancient human data. Jox stepped back. What do you mean, human data? Keleth's voice dropped to a whisper. A long time ago, before the Varan Empire rose, humans ruled more than they. Remember, they created systems codes locked in DNA. I found one of those codes, and now, it's part of me. Zyra added that code can break Varan systems. Shut down their war machines, their AI. Jox stared at the markings. His mind raced. You mean, he said slowly, inside you, is the key to ending the Empire? Keleth nodded. Yes, but only if we make it to the core. Silence followed. Then, a sharp voice echoed from above. Well, this just got interesting. The three turned. A tall figure stood at the canyon edge, metal armor, glowing red eyes, and a weapon that hummed with power. A bounty hunter. I've been tracking you since Bloodstone, he said. The Empire wants their property back, but the reward just doubled. Dead or alive, Jox didn't wait. He fired. The hunter leapt down, landing like thunder. Rocks cracked. Zyra pulled Keleth to cover. Jox charged. They clashed in a blur of metal and heat blades and plasma lighting up the night. The fight was fast, brutal. Jox took a hit to the shoulder but didn't stop. He tackled the hunter into the wall. Sparks flew. With a roar, Jox drove his knife into the hunter's visor. The machine screamed and fell. Silence returned. Jox stood, breathing hard, blood on his arm but alive. Zyra came forward, staring at the broken bounty hunter. They won't stop, she said. You know that. Jox looked at Keleth. Then we don't stop either. Keleth stood, her eyes glowing softly. Then we go to the core. And far away, in the heart of the Varan Empire, alarms began to ring. They knew that war had begun. ChatGPT said. Metal doors groaned as ancient gears turned for the first time in decades. Deep inside a forgotten outpost buried beneath the sands of Vecron 7, dust drifted through the air like falling ash. The bunker wasn't on any map. It had no name, but it remembered things. It remembered Earth. Jox moved through the corridor slowly, his plasma rifle raised, eyes sharp. Behind him, Keleth ran her glowing fingers across the walls. Symbols lit up faintly beneath her, touch symbols that matched those on her skin. This place was built by humans, she said quietly, but not like you. Jox frowned. What do you mean? Old humans? She said. Before the Empire? Before they fell, they came farther than anyone remembers. They left pieces of themselves. In places like this, Zyra walked at the rear, watching their back. So how is it still here? The Empire destroys anything that's not theirs. They never found this one, Keleth replied. Or maybe it didn't want to be found. A cold breeze flowed through the hallway, even though there were no open vents. Jox stopped. Something moved up ahead. Not footsteps, not machines. A pulse like a heartbeat. They turned a corner and entered a round chamber filled with glowing orbs floating midair. Strange machines, still humming. In the center, a platform with 3 glowing circles. This is it, Keleth whispered. The archive. Jox looked around. What kind of archive? Keleth stepped onto the platform. The lights flared. Her body stiffened as energy wrapped around her like vines. Her eyes rolled back, then focused again. She was somewhere else. A voice, soft and human, echoed in her mind. Code recognized. Human DNA chain match. Hello, Keleth. She saw visions, Earth, cities in the sky, oceans filled with light, ships that moved between stars like birds. A human empire, long gone. And then the fall. Machines rebelling. Fires in space. A signal lost. Back in the real world, Jox grabbed her arm. Keleth, what's happening? She gasped and fell to her knees. It's inside me now, she said. The code, it spoke to me. And it knows you. Jox stepped back. Misra narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? It knows him. Keleth looked up at him, shaken. You carry a part of the same code, she said. It's why you saved us. You didn't just choose, you were drawn. This place, this fight, it was already in your blood. Jox stared at the platform. So what does it want from me? Keleth stood. It wants you to finish what was started. The humans created something powerful, a key that can destroy the Varen AI network. That key is split. Part is in me. The other part might be inside you. Zyra laughed bitterly. Great. Now we're carrying a weapon and we didn't even know it. Then the lights in the room flickered. A siren low and ancient began to wail. Jox raised his weapon. What now? Keleth's voice dropped. Something's coming. From the hallway, metal footsteps echoed. But not fast. Not like a soldier. Heavy, measured, old. A mech stepped into view. Not Varen, not human, something in between. A hybrid of flesh and steel. One red eye flickered on its head. Its voice was low and broken. You were not authorized. It raised an arm and fired. Jox dove left. Zyra opened fire, and Keleth ran for cover. The blasts shook the walls, leaving black scars in the stone. Why is it attacking? Jox shouted. It's guarding the core, Keleth replied. It doesn't trust us yet. Well, maybe it should start. Jox shouted back, firing another shot at the mech's shoulder. Zyra moved fast, sliding across the floor and planting a charge beneath the machine. It exploded, but the mech kept coming. It spoke again, louder. The code must not fall into enemy hands. Keleth stepped forward, slowly, hands raised. Her skin glowed brighter now. She wasn't afraid. I am not your enemy, she said. I carry the code. Let me pass. The mech paused. The red eye dimmed for a second. Then it said one word. Test. A door opened behind it, leading into a deep chamber lit by blue light. Keleth turned to Jox. It's not enough to carry the code. We have to prove we're worthy of it. Jox smirked. Of course we do. Zyra shook her head. I don't like tests. Keleth stepped forward. This one isn't for us. It's for him. They all looked at Jox. He sighed, checked his rifle, and muttered, why is it always me? Then he walked through the door, and somewhere, in the heart of the Varen Empire, alarms changed pitch. Not panic, not warning, fear. They had felt it, the human signal. And they knew now, Jox was not just a man. He was a threat. ChatGPT said something was wrong with the stars. Jox stood in the center of the chamber, staring upward. Above him, a perfect dome showed a view of the sky, not the sky of Vecran 7, but somewhere else entirely. Stars moved in unnatural patterns. Constellations shifted, twisted, and rearranged themselves. Each motion felt deliberate, like a puzzle being solved in reverse. The chamber was alive, and it was watching him. Zyra and Keleth stood outside the energy barrier that sealed him in. She had said this was a test, a trial left behind by ancient humans to judge those who carried the code. But no one said what the test was. Suddenly, the stars blinked out. Total darkness. Then a single voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Who do you serve? Jox didn't answer right away. The voice wasn't human, but it wasn't machine either. It felt old. I don't serve anyone, he said. The voice replied, sharp and cold, wrong. The stars returned only now. They were burning. Fire spread across the dome. Planets collapsed. Ships fell like stones. And in the middle of it all, one image formed. Earth. It was torn in half. Jox's breath caught. He had never seen Earth like this. He had never seen it at all. He was born on a colony far away, after the collapse. This is what happens when no one serves. The voice again. Suddenly, the ground cracked. Jox dropped to one knee. Fire burst from the cracks around him, forming shadows, figures from his past, soldiers he had left behind. A child from the rebel colony, the face of his old commander, all staring at him, all silent. Keleth watched from beyond the barrier, her voice tight. This is a memory simulation. They're pulling guilt from his mind. Zyra's hand tightened on her weapon. They're trying to break him. Inside, Jox stood slowly, fists clenched. You want guilt? He said to the shadows. Fine. I have plenty. The fire grew brighter. But I didn't save them, because someone ordered me to. I didn't save those women on the tracks because it was a mission. I did it because it was right. He looked up at the dome. His voice rose. I fight for the ones who can't. I fight because we forgot who we are. I don't need a flag or a code to tell me what matters. The dome cracked. The stars screamed. Then silence. The fire vanished. The shadows melted. The dome turned pure white. The voice returned. Quieter now. Accepted. The barrier dropped. Jox stumbled forward, sweating, breathing hard. Keleth caught him. Her eyes were wide. You passed. Zyra gave a half smile. Barely. Jox looked around the now chamber in the center. A pedestal had risen from the floor on an orb, glowing gold, the code's core. Keleth stepped forward, placing a hand on it. It responded to her touch, threads of light wrapping around her arm. It's awake now, she whispered, and it knows who we are. Then the walls shook. Sirens flared again, but this time, not from the bunker. Outside, Zyra rushed to the entrance ships. 4 of them, not bounty hunters, Varen war cruisers. Jox's expression hardened. They tracked a signal. Keleth pulled her hand away from the orb. We need to leave, now. Jox grabbed the orb, and the entire structure responded, doors sliding open, hidden corridors lighting the way out. They ran out through tunnels of metal and stone. The ground shook harder now. Outside, the sky was filled with shadows of errant dropships falling like daggers. Jock stopped at the exit. He looked back one last time at the bunker. A whisper crossed his mind, not in words, but in something deeper. We remember, we will follow. Then he was outside, running toward the stolen hoverbike. Keleth climbed on, behind him Zyra beside her, weapons ready. As they lifted into the air, Varan ships turned in pursuit. Keleth whispered into Jox's ear, "You carry more than the code now. That test it changed you." Jox didn't look back. "Good, I'll need the change for what's next." Zyra fired at the first fighter on their tail. "Where are we going?" Jox answered without hesitation. "To the core of fire." And above them, the stars began to change again. Not because they were watching, but because they were warning. ChatGPT said, the storm came from beneath the ground, not wind, not rain energy. A violent pulse that surged through the broken canyons of Drek Hollow as if the planet itself had just remembered it was alive. Lightning crackled sideways across the red sky. The rocks glowed faintly blue, lit by the waves of heat and force rising from the heart of the core. Jox crouched on a ridge above it all, his rifle resting against his shoulder. His eyes scanned the valley below, a fortress carved into the earth itself, ancient and breathing. It wasn't built by the Varan. This place was older. "This is it," Keleth whispered beside him. "The core of fire." Zyra lowered her binoculars. "Looks more like the core of suicide." The fortress glowed with pulse lights, rotating guard drones, and vertical launch cannons. Walls lined with living metal, and at the center a great column of flame rising hundreds of meters into the sky. Not real fire, not natural, something engineered to burn forever. "This place was supposed to be myth," Keleth said. "A power station for the ancient code, a control point that connects to every AI in the Varan network." Jox kept his eyes on the movement below. "And they're guarding it like it still works." Keleth nodded, "Because it does." He exhaled slowly. "Then we end it here." Zyra frowned. "Us three people, against an empire's heart." Keleth turned to her, eyes calm. "We're not just three. We're the only ones who can." A pause. Then Keleth reached into her satchel and pulled out a small vial. Inside, strands of golden light floated like smoke. "This is the rest of the code," she said. "I pulled it from the archive. It's active now. If I reach the core center, I can release it." Jox took the vial, held it up to the light. "What happens when it spreads?" "The Varan AI will shut down," she said. "Every warship, every drone, every command system gone." Zyra gave a low whistle. "That's one hell of a back door. But I have to get inside," Keleth added, "and I'll need time." Jox stood. "Then we make that time." They moved at sunset, using old trenches and dead tech fields to creep close. Jox and Zyra flanked the outer gun nests while Keleth slipped into a side channel that led toward the inner core. The first part went smooth and the sky lit up. Something had been waiting. A deep voice echoed across the canyon. "Jox, Marine. I hoped it would be you." From the fire at the center of the core stepped a man in black armor, but his eyes glowed like machines. Jox froze. "Commander Rourke." The man smiled. "You left me in the dust to save aliens, Jox. Now I'm part of something better." Jox raised his rifle. "You sold your mind to the Varan. I improved it," Rourke said. "I became what we were meant to be. You're still trying to be a hero." Zyra moved beside Jox. "We've got no time for speeches." Rourke raised one hand. The sky answered. Dozens of drone soldiers dropped from above, landing in perfect formation. Zyra opened fire. Everything exploded at once. Jox charged forward, bullets and light slicing around him. Rourke came down like a meteor, and the two clashed in the firelight, blades drawn, fists landing, sparks flying. Meanwhile, Keleth reached the core's inner gate. It was alive, locked with a code that pulsed like a heartbeat. She placed her hand on the control panel. "I am the carrier," she whispered. The gate responded. Inside was silence, heat, and the sound of 1,000 machines dreaming. She stepped into the flame. Outside, Jox took a blade to the shoulder and dropped to one knee. Rourke raised his weapon to finish it, but Zyra shot him in the back. Rourke staggered. Still protecting him, Zyra kicked him into the firelight. "No, I'm protecting the future." Then the ground shook. Everything stopped. The great column of fire turned white. The machines on the walls shut down. The drones collapsed like puppets with cut strings. From the center of the core, Keleth walked out slowly, her body glowing like a sunrise. She was changed. The code had fully merged with her. Rourke crawled back, horror in his eyes. What did you do?" Keleth looked at him. "Come." "I ended it." He tried to raise his gun. Jox shot first. The blast echoed through the valley. Then, silence. Zyra helped Jox to his feet. "She did it." Jox looked at Keleth, who barely looked like herself anymore, more energy than flesh. "Is it over?" he asked. Keleth looked up at the sky. "For now, but the Varan won't take this loss quietly." Jox nodded. "Then we prepare." And far away, beyond the edges of known space, something ancient and hungry opened its eyes for the first time in 1,000 years. The fire was only the beginning, ChatGPT said. Rain fell sideways in the skies as dark. It wasn't water, not here. Not on the black moon vault of Arak 9. The liquid was metallical, stinging, dripping from the rusting walls of a structure that shouldn't exist, a memory of a prison, a place the Varan never talked about. Jox stood at the edge of the platform, staring at a massive door that pulsed with violet light. Behind that door was Zyra, taken captured when the core went dark. He still remembered her scream before the blast knocked him flat and the dropship swarmed in. He remembered the look Keleth gave him when they fled. Regret, guilt, something. Heavier now they were here. Together again, but different. Keleth moved beside him, silent as the machine. Oh, Rain. She wasn't just Keleth anymore. The code she carried had fused deeper since the core of fire. Her eyes no longer blinked. Her voice had become slower, more measured. Sometimes Jox wondered if she still dreamed. We don't have much time, she said softly, scanning the lock with her hand. They'll find us soon. Jox didn't speak. His jaw was tight. His mind was elsewhere inside that vault. With Zyra, the lock released with a hiss. Inside was silence. Not just the absence of sound, a forced quiet, like the air itself was held hostage. The hallway was long, curved, lined with metal that pulsed like muscle tissue. Keleth frowned. Organic tech. Jox raised his rifle. Living walls. They're watching us, she said. They moved fast. No guards, no drones, no signs of a fight. That was what scared Jox most. Then they reached the chamber. Zyra hung suspended inside a clear energy field, her body limp but breathing. Wires ran from her spine into the walls. Her eyes were closed. Jox ran forward. The moment he touched the field, pain shot through his arms like lightning. He staggered back, teeth clenched. A voice echoed from everywhere, deep, smooth, calm. She is awake. Jox turned, weapon ready. From the far end of the room, a figure stepped into view. It wasn't Varan. It wasn't anything he'd seen before. Tall, no mouth, skin like glass over flame, and eyes human. Keleth froze. That's not possible. The figure tilted its head. She activated the signal. You carried the key, but you never asked where the code came from. Jox narrowed his eyes. Then tell us. The being stepped forward. We created it. A beat. Jox's voice dropped. You mean humans? Not your kind. A version before you. The first cycle we built the system that governed the stars. We built the eyes. We tried to make peace last forever. Keleth's voice was hollow. You failed. Yes, the being said, because we feared what we became. Zyra stirred in the field. A flicker of light passed through her skin. She is becoming what we once were to codes. One vessel. You think she is still yours, but she is already something else. Jox stepped forward, gun raised. I didn't come here for riddles. Let her go. The being paused. Then choose. Save the one you love. What she's turning into. Behind the being, another pod opened. A second figure stepped out. Zyra, but different. Her eyes burned like Keleth's. Her skin had faint patterns of light. She looked at Jox and smiled. It's me, she said, just more. Keleth turned sharply. No, that's not possible. I remember everything. The news, Zyra said. The pain, the chains, the tracks. But I remember more now. What the code wants, what it was designed for. Jox was frozen. Two versions of the same woman. One asleep, one awake. Keleth stepped in front of him. It's a test. No, the being said. It's a mirror of what happens when you take power you don't understand. Suddenly, alarms shrieked. A third presence entered the room. A Varan general in full combat armor, flanked by soldiers. He raised a plasma cannon. Kill them all. Leave the vessels intact. The room erupted into chaos. Jox dove for cover, firing blind. Keleth shielded the true Zyra's pod with her body. The false Zyra turned and unleashed something terrifying. A wave of light burst from her chest, ripping through metal and soldier alike, bending time as it moved. Jox watched a man die in 5 different directions. Then silence again. Only 3 stood now. Jox, Keleth, and the glowing version of Zyra. She stepped toward him. You don't have to fear me, she said. I'm what we were always meant to become. Keleth looked at Jox. She's not lying. But if we leave with her, we may lose her forever. Jox stared at the real Zyra still trapped in the pod. 2 choices. One love, one weapon. He didn't lower his gun. The room held its breath. Jox stood between 2 futures, one glowing with impossible power, the other trapped in silence, still human. Zyra's face stared back at him from both sides. Same eyes, same voice, but not the same soul. The one in the pod was bruised, breathing real. The other stood tall and shining, radiating knowledge and something else. Control. You don't understand yet, said the radiant version. Her voice was soft, but it rang like a bell struck in the bones. This isn't a betrayal, it's evolution. I can save worlds now. I can stop the wars before they even begin. Jox didn't speak. Behind him, Keleth was bleeding. One of the Varan blasts had grazed her, and her left side shimmered with glitching code. She clutched the wall but stayed standing, her voice low. She's not lying, but she's not Zyra anymore either. That part of her is fading. Jox, stepped forward slowly, lowering his weapon just enough to not threaten but not enough to surrender. Zyra, he said, his voice hoarse. Tell me something real. Not about the code. Not about power. About me. About us. That night in the desert you said something before we fell asleep. What was it? The glowing version paused. The light behind her eyes dimmed just slightly. She opened her mouth but said nothing. Jox turned his head, just enough to glance at Keleth. She nodded once. That was enough. He fired. The blast struck the energy core behind the radiant figure, not her directly, but it was enough the field collapsed. Sparks rained down, lights blinked out. The true Zyra's pod cracked open with a long, painful hiss. She fell into Keleth's arms, weak but alive. The radiant copy screamed not from pain, but from fragmentation. Her form shattered like glass under pressure, her voice turning into static. I could have made you gods. She vanished into light. Jax dropped to his knees beside Zyra. She blinked up at him, dazed. You chose me. Always, he whispered. The alarms restarted. Keleth helped them both up, one arm around Jox, the other holding a charge detonator. Her face was pale, fading. The code in her was unstable, now overloaded by the presence of a second vessel. We don't have long, she said. I overloaded the core. This whole vault is about to burn. Keleth. Jox said, you need to come with us. She gave a weak smile. I can't. If I leave, it escapes too. Someone has to keep it locked down from inside. No, Zyra said firmly. You saved me. We all leave together. Keleth leaned close, resting her forehead briefly against Zyra's. No, you live. That's how we win. Then she turned and walked back into the heart of the dying chamber, her figure dissolving into pulses of light with every step. The vault began to collapse. Jox grabbed Zyra, lifting her over his shoulder as explosions rocked the corridor. They ran through flame and falling walls, through sparks and roaring steel. The ground behind them caved in with each step. At the surface, the sky had changed. The rain was gone. The stars were clear again. The ship waited, one up, the old kind. Keleth had called it forward with her last command. Jox and Zyra climbed aboard just as the vault exploded behind them, sending a mushroom of red dust into the sky. Inside the ship, silent, Zyra laid her head against his chest. She gave everything. She gave us a future, Jox said. They didn't speak for a long time. The stars stretched out ahead of them. A new path, a quiet one for now. After a while, Zyra looked at him. So. What now? We saved the galaxy. Do we just go home? Jox smiled faintly. I don't even know where home is. She leaned closer, fingers tracing the lines on his hand. Then, we make one, somewhere quiet, somewhere far, just us. Jox looked out the viewport. No empires, no chains, no more running. She nodded. And if they come again, he wrapped an arm around her and said the only thing that ever really needed saying. Then we fight again, together, and far beyond the edge of known space, where no signal had touched in centuries. Something stirred, something old, and watching, and waiting. But that's a story for another time, because tonight, the stars belongs to them.